It's funny, right? We always hear that it's just in education's like the key to the future, but sometimes it feels like that key is, I don't know, a little rusty.
Yeah, stuck in the lock a little bit.
Exactly. Like we're memorizing all these facts when we have like literally all the information in the world in our pockets.
Right. It's like, why are we still doing this?
That's exactly what this article we're diving into today is all about. Why are we still teaching kids outdated skills?
Yeah.
It's a pretty provocative question.
Oh, definitely provocative. But it's also really insightful, especially when you start looking at how AI and like XR and no-code platforms are already shaking things up.
Okay, so let's start with like the elephant in the classroom here. This whole idea of the inertia of education, which the article talks about.
Oh yeah, I love that phrase because it really captures how slow everything moves in education, right? Like all the committees and policies and the teacher training, it's just not keeping up with how fast technology is changing.
It's like we're preparing kids for a world that doesn't even exist anymore.
Right. I mean, think about it. We're teaching kids to code, but AI is already writing code that's way more complex than anything most humans can do.
So that leads to a pretty big question then. What skills should we be focusing on if we want to prepare these kids for this like AI-powered future? What's actually going to be relevant?
Well, the article argues that one of the most important skills will be prompting AI. Basically, it's about learning how to communicate effectively with AI, how to give it instructions to get the results you want.
So it's less about knowing how to code and more about knowing how to, like, talk to the AI that does the coding.
Exactly. And it's not just limited to, like, creative stuff either. Imagine using AI to do research. Instead of spending hours poring over data, you could prompt an AI to analyze it for you, to pull out the key insights.
That would be amazing. But what about people who aren't interested in coding or AI? Does this new world just leave them behind?
Not at all. That's where no-code platforms come in. These platforms allow anyone, even if they don't have any coding experience, to build websites, apps, even automate entire business processes.
Wait, seriously? So even if you're not a programmer, you can still be like an entrepreneur or innovator?
Exactly. No-code platforms are making technology accessible to everyone. It's a total game changer, especially for young people who have all these creative ideas but might not have the technical skills to bring them to life yet.
This is all super exciting, but I gotta ask, what about the more traditional subjects like math, science, history? Do they just become obsolete in this scenario?
The article doesn't say we should throw out traditional subjects. It's more about shifting how we teach them.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Give me an example.
Sure, think about math. Instead of just memorizing formulas, what if students used AI to model real-world problems? They could actually see how math works in practice, making it way more engaging and intuitive.
So instead of just learning the what, they're learning the why and the how.
Exactly. And this applies to other subjects, too. In history, students could use AI to analyze primary sources, to debate different historical interpretations, or even create interactive timelines. AI could provide the framework, allowing students to go deeper and develop those critical thinking skills.
So AI can handle the, like, rote memorization and data crunching, freeing up teachers and students to focus on higher level thinking and problem solving.
Right. And speaking of immersive experiences, let's talk about XR.
Oh, yeah. XR, virtual reality, and augmented reality.
Yeah.
It feels like we've been hearing about this stuff for ages, but it hasn't really, like, taken off in education yet, has it?
It's starting to, and this article highlights how transformative it can be. We're talking about virtual field trips to ancient Rome, dissecting a human heart in VR without, any of the mess, even designing buildings in augmented reality right on your desk.
Okay, that's where it gets really interesting. It's not just about the cool tech factor, it's about how XR can actually change how we learn.
Exactly. XR allows us to move from passive learning to active, experiential learning. It's about learning by doing, which is how our brains are actually wired to learn best.
So we've got AI prompting, no-code platforms, and XR, all these amazing tools.
Yeah.
But it still feels like we're just scratching the surface here.
Oh, for sure.
Where do we even begin to implement these changes in a meaningful way? It feels kind of overwhelming.
It is a big challenge. But the article actually proposes something pretty radical, a global, real-time education platform that brings all of these technologies together.
Whoa, okay, I'm listening.
Imagine the world's best teachers.
So, like, location and resources wouldn't be barriers to a good education anymore. Everyone would have equal access.
That's the idea.
Pretty wild, right?
That's a huge idea. I mean, it would completely disrupt the education system as we know it.
No doubt.
But the potential benefits are like mind-blowing, equal access to quality education for everyone. That's a future worth fighting for.
Yeah, it's definitely a bold vision, for sure. But you know what I really appreciate about this article? It's not just complaining about how things are. It's actually trying to, imagine something better.
Absolutely. It gets you thinking about what education could be, not just what it is now.
Exactly. And one of the things the article keeps coming back to is, the importance of those human skills that AI can't replicate.
Oh, yeah, totally. Those are going to be more crucial than ever, right? Creativity, critical thinking, problem solving.
And it makes you wonder, how do we actually design an education system that fosters those skills? If memorizing facts and formulas isn't the priority anymore, what does a classroom even look like?
It's a really interesting question to think about. Instead of rows of desks and lectures, maybe classrooms become more like, I don't know, collaborative workshops.
Oh, I love that idea.
Yeah, where students are working together on real-world projects, using AI as a tool to help them along the way. Analyzing data, brainstorming ideas, testing solutions.
That'd be so much more engaging than just, passively sitting there listening to someone talk at you.
Yeah.
Right. And with XR, the possibilities for those projects get even crazier. Imagine students designing a sustainable city in VR or creating an interactive historical simulation using augmented reality.
Wow, it's like taking learning beyond the textbook, beyond the classroom walls.
Totally. It's about making it experiential, about empowering students to become active learners, not just passive recipients of information.
You know, thinking back on my own education, I can't help but feel a little, I don't know, cheated. So much of it felt so irrelevant to, actual life.
I hear you. It's like, why are we making them jump through all these hoops if it doesn't actually prepare them for anything?
Right. What if we could actually redesign education to make it something that, sparks curiosity, ignites passion, and actually prepares them for the real world?
I think that's the key shift we need to make. It's not about what you know anymore. It's about what you can do with what you know, as the article says.
And in a world where information is constantly changing and evolving, that ability to, adapt and learn new things and solve problems, that's what's really going to matter.
It's a shift from a knowledge-based system to a skill-based system, right?
Exactly. So, with all that in mind, where does the teacher fit into all of this? If AI can personalize learning and answer questions and even, grade assignments, what does that mean for human educators?
It's a big question for sure, and I don't think anyone has all the answers yet. But I don't think AI is going to make teachers obsolete.
Yeah, I agree. It's more about AI changing the role of the teacher.
Right. Maybe teachers become more like mentors, guides, facilitators.
Focusing on those uniquely human aspects of teaching that AI can't replicate, right? Like inspiring students, challenging them, creating a supportive learning environment.
Exactly. It's about using technology to enhance the learning experience, not replace the human element.
You know, another thing that struck me about this article is how AI can actually help level the playing field in education.
Oh, absolutely. That's one of the most exciting possibilities, I think.
Imagine if every student had access to, a personalized AI tutor that could adapt to their individual learning style and pace.
It would be huge, right? We could finally start to close those achievement gaps and make sure every kid has a chance to succeed.
And it's not just about tutoring. It's about using AI to create customized learning pathways for each student, identify areas where they might be struggling, provide real-time feedback. It's taking personalized learning to a whole new level.
And with no-code platforms, students from all backgrounds would have the power to create and innovate, even if they don't have any coding experience. It's about breaking down those barriers to entry.
I love that. So we're not just teaching students, we're empowering them.
Right. We're giving them the tools to become creators, problem solvers, agents of change. And that's exactly what they'll need to thrive in this AI-powered world.
So I guess the big question is, as we're reimagining education for this new world, what kind of future are we actually trying to create? And how can we use these amazing tools, AI, XR, no code, to make that vision a reality?
That's a million-dollar question, right?
It's a big one. But I think just asking the question is a good first step.
Absolutely. We need to have these conversations, challenge our assumptions, be willing to experiment, and maybe even, fail a little bit along the way.
Because that's how we learn, right?
Exactly. And that brings us back to this whole idea of outdated skills and why we're so resistant to change.
It's not about being anti-tradition. It's about recognizing that the world is different now, and we need to adapt.
And this article isn't just doom and gloom. It's actually really optimistic about the potential we have to create something better.
Yeah, like we have all these amazing tools at our disposal. We just need to figure out how to use them effectively.
Right. It's like we have all the ingredients for this amazing feast, but we're still using our great-grandmother's cookbook.
I love that analogy. So if you were writing the new cookbook for education, what would be the key ingredients?
Well, we've already talked about some of them, AI prompting, no-code platforms, XR, but it's not just about the technology itself.
Right, it's about the approach.
Exactly. We need to move away from this idea of education as a passive process, where students are just absorbing information. We need to make it active, engaging, relevant to their lives.
It's about teaching them how to think, not just what to think. How to learn, not just what to learn.
Exactly. And I think that's where the role of the teacher becomes even more important.
Because technology can't replicate that human connection, that mentorship, that inspiration that a great teacher can provide.
Absolutely. Technology is a tool, and like any tool, it can be used for good or for bad. It's up to us to make sure we're using it to create a better future.
Okay, so as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the article's final proposal, this global real-time education platform. Do you think it's actually feasible? What kind of challenges do you see?
It's a huge idea, for sure. And it would require a massive shift in how we think about education, like on a global scale.
Yeah, the logistics would be insane.
Right. We're talking about breaking down national boundaries, rethinking curriculum standards, maybe even challenging the whole structure of traditional schooling. But I think the technical challenges are actually the easiest part.
Really?
Yeah. The bigger hurdles, in my opinion, are the social and political ones.
That makes sense. It would require like a global commitment to collaboration and a willingness to embrace new ways of thinking and doing things.
Exactly. But if we could overcome those challenges, the potential rewards are huge. Imagine a world where every kid, no matter where they're born or what resources they have access to, could get a world-class education from the best teachers on the planet.
It's a vision that's both inspiring and kind of daunting at the same time.
For sure.
But as the article points out, the future isn't something that just happens to us. It's something we create.
Yeah.
And education is the key to unlocking that creative potential.
And that brings us back to you, the listener. You're part of this conversation, too.
We all have a role to play in shaping the future of education. So as we move into the final part of this deep dive, I want to leave you with a question to ponder. If you could design the ideal education system for this AI-powered world, what would it look like?
It really is a powerful thing to imagine.
Right. And even if, like, a global platform isn't the answer right away, it at least gets us thinking bigger.
Right, exactly. It pushes us to be more creative, more ambitious with how we approach education.
I think this article does such a good job of moving past that knee-jerk reaction of like, whoa, that's crazy talk, and into like, okay, but what if?
It's like we're at this tipping point, right? The old model of education is obviously not working, but we're still kind of figuring out what the new one should look like.
It's exciting and scary all at the same time, you know? Like, we're standing on the edge of something totally new, but not sure whether to jump.
But isn't that where the real innovation happens? When we're willing to challenge what we think we know, experiment, and maybe even like mess up a few times along the way?
I guess that's true for learning in general, right? Not just education systems.
Totally. It's all about embracing that growth mindset, that willingness to like constantly learn and adapt.
Which brings us back to like the core of this whole deep dive, right? This question of why we're still clinging to all these outdated skills and methods.
It's not about being anti-tradition or anything. It's just recognizing that the world has changed and we got to change with it.
And I think what's cool about this article is that it's not all doom and gloom. It's actually pretty optimistic about the potential we have.
Oh, yeah, totally. It's like, hey, we have all these amazing tools now, AI, XR, no code. We can actually use them to build something better.
But you got to figure out how to use them, right?
Exactly. It's like going back to that analogy we had before. It's like we have all the ingredients for an amazing meal, but we're still stuck using grandma's old recipe.
Okay, last time, I promise.
So,
but I love that analogy. So if you were writing the new recipe for education, what would be the must-have ingredients?
Well, we've already touched on a lot of them, right? AI prompting, so students can learn how to actually communicate with these machines, no-code platforms, so they can become creators and builders themselves, XR, to make learning hands-on and immersive.
But it's not just about the tech itself, right?
Definitely not. It's about how we use it. We need to move away from this idea of education as this, passive thing where you just sit there and absorb information.
It has to be more active, right?
Way more active, more engaging, and it has to actually relate to their lives.
It's about teaching them how to think, not just what to think.
Yes. and how to learn, not just what to learn.
And I think that's where the role of the teacher, that human element, becomes even more important.
100%. Because no matter how fancy the technology gets, it can't replace that connection, that mentorship, that spark of inspiration that a great teacher can bring.
It's like technology is a tool, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like any tool, it can be used in good ways or bad ways.
Exactly. It all comes down to us, educators, parents, just like citizens in general. We got to make sure we're using these tools to build a better future for these kids.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I kind of want to end on a hopeful note. We've talked a lot about the challenges facing education, but I really do think there's a lot to be excited about.
Oh, for sure.
We have the tools, we have the knowledge, and I think there's a growing awareness that things need to change.
And we have you, the listener. You're part of this too.
Exactly. So as we sign off, I want to leave you with one final question. What kind of education do you want for yourself, for your kids, for the future? And what are you willing to do to make it happen? Because the future of education isn't some set path. It's something we all create together.